All right. Good morning, Acting Chair Garrett and Member Vollendroth and Anita and guests. The lobby is open and the recording has begun.
Good morning, Anita. What do you have for us today?
Good morning, board members. As you know, I'm Anita Bingham, the HR director here at the LCB, and I'm going to be sharing some highlights from our 2021 survey and also some updates from our first quarter.
Great.
So you can go ahead, Justin. So these are the questions that we ask our employees every year for the salaries or the employee engagement survey. And in order to be considered a positive response, they would need to have to either select number 4 or 5. So usually or almost always or always, just so that when we talking about positive scores, you'll understand where that's coming from. Next slide. So when we're looking at these slides where you see the Liquor and Cannabis Board logo, that will be our percentages. And when you see the state logo, that will be the percentages that were for the state overall. So just so you know what you're kind of looking at there. We did pretty good this year in that we had 261 staff that participated out of our roughly 330 staff. And that 78% is a 7% increase from last year. So that's pretty good. And we're also doing better than the state does overall. They're only at 66% participation rate. So I think we're doing good there. Any questions so far?
Nope.
All righty, next slide then, please.
Anita, I have a quick question.
Sure.
I was just wondering, so we have the overall response here, and perhaps you're going to get into this later in the presentation, but do we also have this broken out by section within the LCB?
We do give the individual divisions their results. What our report out has been, though, is the agency as a whole, but they do have their individual results.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so overall, there were 13 questions that we were down. We scored a little down from last year, but not by significant amounts, really. And that's not really too surprising considering, you know, everything that's been going on in the world. So there's that. And then question 7, my supervisor treats me with dignity and respect. And question 18, how satisfied are you with your mobility, were our highest scoring positive percentages. Both of those were at 92%. Question 7, my supervisor treats me with dignity and respect, has consistently stayed in the low to mid 90s, never going below 90% since 2016. And that's really good. And it's also encouraging that the state is doing well on that one too. They have a 88% positive response rate.
I am looking at, go back. So, but we have areas that we did drop. I'm not comparing us to the state, I'm comparing year to year. So when I receive helpful communication from my agency, that dropped.
Right.
I find meaning in my work, that dropped.
Yeah, no, we did. We had 13 questions overall that dropped from last year. So
right.
That's where I was saying, you know, I think that's a trend that was seen really enterprise-wide just because, you know, there's a lot going on in the world and we've been living with COVID and we've been hunkered down. So from what I heard from state HR in terms of the enterprise reporting, that's a trend that they were seeing this year, that things are down a little bit, but.
So something like my agency support a diverse workforce, and I think it had dropped even if we had the 19 number, but it's now down to 79%. My agency helped me navigate change. And then I wrote down number 17, how satisfied are you with your flexibility? But do we know, are you going to get into the different divisions so we can kind of see what divisions that we see these numbers in?
I wasn't planning to do that today, but if you guys would like me to follow up with you on division numbers, I would be happy to do that.
Okay, yeah, normally when this is presented to us, we go through the division numbers also.
Okay.
That goes back to my earlier question. I think it would be super interesting to dive into divisions. I'm wondering when I look at all these questions, of course, you've mentioned this, Anita, but COVID and the remote environment that we're working in, because if you look at questions 19 and 20, although there have been reductions in certain areas, in general, I'm satisfied with my job went up, as well as I would recommend my agency as a great place to work went up. So despite the fact that we went down in some areas, we went up in other critical areas.
Exactly, right. Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's
so I think that's where it's going to be important to look at the different divisions.
I agree.
okay. I will follow up with you and do that. Thank you. Let's see. So as you said, you were mentioning that question 2 had the biggest decrease, and that's true. I received helpful communication from my agency. Did have a drop of 7%. But is still above the state average there. So we'll be working with our communications folks and just talking as a management team on how we make sure that people are, that information that we know is getting down to everyone. And there's obviously different ways of doing that. So I think that's a discussion that we continue to have. Question?
A quick question. When I'm assuming you've presented this to the management team already?
I did, yes.
When you presented to the management team, was there any thought about question number 3, I find meaning in my work, and the reduction from 2020 to 21? Any initial thought as to why that might be the case? Is it the environment, the COVID, working remotely? Just any initial reactions from management?
Yeah, no, we didn't really talk too much about that. It is interesting though to kind of try to think about why that might be, if it's just the environment that we're in. That was, as I'll be saying here in a minute, was the only question that we scored lower than the state on. So it is kind of interesting that our folks are kind of struggling making that connection, I guess.
Right. And like I say, I'm looking not just at the state. That's good to have what the state scored, but I'm just looking at the LCB and what we're scoring compared to previous years.
Right, right. Yeah, so our lowest score was question 11. I know how my agency measures success, and when I'll be later on, I'll be talking about the questions that management team has decided to focus on for the agency as a whole. And, I'll be saying that will be one of those because that is so low. We're kind of concerned about why people aren't making that connection.
And maybe in order to, instead of to know for sure why we are saying because of COVID, these 2 years represent COVID. Maybe you should include in this 2019 when we weren't in COVID, so we can compare before COVID and after, and while we were in COVID and after COVID.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. And we do have that, so I can definitely share that with you.
Yeah, it would be great to see that on this chart.
Okay, great. We'll add that. So I was gonna kind of do a comparison with the state, but if you guys aren't quite interested more in how we compare with the state, I can move beyond that.
Okay.
Alrighty. So I guess the next slide then, please, Dustin. So these next slides are new dashboards that we get from state HR. They're actually working on some really nice interactive dashboards for state agencies to use. And they use the RAMP model to provide a human-centered framework to measure levels of engagement through 4 main motivators, which are relations, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So the first one there is the relationship, which is the drive to be respected and connected. And you'll see that for those questions that relate to relationships, we did take a 3% decline from last year. Next slide, Dustin. And then autonomy, which are the questions that have to do with the drive to have a voice and a choice. We also took a 2% decline from last year. Next slide. Mastery, the drive to learn and grow, took a 1% decline. And purpose, the drive for meaning in our work and our organization, took a 3% decline. Next slide. This was the rotating question that they added this year about inclusion in the workplace. And you'll see that we had a 76 positive response to that question, which room for improvement, but we're doing better than the state overall. And these are the questions that they added as supplemental questions around reopening our workforce. Catch up here. So the first question was how satisfied people are feeling with how we're responding to the needs of staff during the pandemic. And we had a 77% positive response on that. And then the question, my agency clearly communicates the reasons for decisions it makes and with reopening the workplace, 71% on that. In my current work environment, I'm satisfied with my ability to develop and maintain relationships. We had 83% positive, which was quite a bit above the state, which only had 57% positive on that one. And then the last one, my agency listens to my needs for reopening the workplace. We had 69%. Next slide. So this is just a slide to let you know how many years our workforce has been at the LCB. And you can see that our highest group there is the 3 to 5 year group with 25%. I just thought it's interesting to see kind of how long people have been around. Next slide. And this is the age of our workforce. And Martha, our payroll manager, tells me that we have 24% of people that could actually leave employment at any time because they're eligible for some sort of retirement right now. We have a lot of people in enforcement that came already from a retirement position and came here kind of as a second retirement. So probably good to be looking at our succession plans and keeping those brushed off, knowing that some of our more seasoned workers in the next few years will probably be headed for retirement. Next slide. So this is where I was mentioning when I did present these findings to the management team, we talked about focusing on these 2 questions, knowing how our agency measures success, and also question 12 about our agency supporting a diverse workforce. So we will be trying to see why we took that 5% decline there and seeing if we can improve that for the next one. So just some general updates there. We're processing about 6 grievances right now. 4 of those have to do with the separations that we had with the vaccine mandate, and a couple there in enforcement. We've also been just keeping in touch with the unions about how we're coming back to work. They're always interested in knowing. Our agency has been pretty much allowing people still to I know some areas are coming back a little bit more, but for the most part, we're allowing people to continue telework. So we're just keeping in touch with the unions on that. They're interested in that, of course, for their members. Yes.
Wondering, just for the sake of informing myself, how many unions are involved? Like, how many unions does the LCB interact with?
We just have the two. Their logos there on the right, the WPEA,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
the FOP is covers our officers. So just those two. We used to have three, but not anymore. So.
And going back to the previous slide, you don't have to go back, but just I have a question related to, looks like there were questions that were added statewide related to COVID. In previous employee satisfaction surveys that I've been involved in, we've been able to ask questions specific to our division. Was the LCB able to insert any specific questions specific to LCB, or is it just across the state?
We do have the ability to do agency specific questions, and for the last couple of years, we've been asking kind of in an open text way what's been working well and what could work better. So we're getting feedback, comment wise that way, and that's helpful.
So in future years, though, the board and/or the LCB has the ability to ask specific questions or ask that they be included?
Yes, we do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So on the recruitment front, things are, very busy. We hired a senior recruiter, Vipin, and he's been doing great work for us in terms of outreach. I think I was just in the management huddle a few minutes ago, and people are really noticing a difference in the amount of qualified candidates that we're getting. And I think that's in large part to a lot of the outreach that he's doing. He's going out to handshake and proactively reaching out in LinkedIn and inviting people to apply to some of our positions. So I know the social equity coordinator position that licensing has is doing interviews, and Becky's quite pleased with the pool that they had, and I think they're going to be close to making a decision before too long on that one. So just also wanted to report out that we have an employee referral incentive program, and that's a program that allows people in our hard to fill positions to, refer people. And if those people end up getting hired, then they get a little, cash reward for doing that. And we have 6 people so far that has been a success for. So we're excited about that and hoping that that continues. And then I didn't know if you guys had a chance to see the enforcement recruitment video or not that they recently made. Have you guys seen that?
I have seen it. It's very good.
It's very good. So I just wanted to point out that good work and let you know it was there if you hadn't had a chance to look at it. But next slide. And so let's see. So you may be aware that the Executive Order 2204 was recently signed by our governor, which requires state agency boards and commissions to implement the Pro-Equity Anti-Racist Plan, which there is known as PAIR as for the acronym. And we're, as an agency, putting together our PAIR team. And all the members will soon be attending an orientation that will be provided by the Office of Equity later this month or early June. So we're excited that that's moving along and anticipating to get sort of some templates and the guidebook from the Office of Equity so we can jump into that work. And let's see, next slide there. Okay, you were only on that side, I'm sorry. And just also wanted to give us just a shout out to our diversity manager, Jim Weatherly, and our communications team for the recent launch of the Diversity, Equity, and Belonging intranet site that we now have. I think they've done great work on it. It's going to be a great way for our employees to, stay connected to the DEI work that we're doing. And also, gives them links to the business resource groups that are available out there that they can participate in. and it's just in this area. So I didn't know if you'd already seen it, but wanted to just let you know if you hadn't. And that is actually all I have for today. I will work on getting those that division information to you. Did you guys have any other further questions or comments about things that information that you would like to know?
No, for me, it was seeing the division breakdown also. So when you can get that to us, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do that very soon.
I'll just add, I've been involved in a lot of employee surveys over the years, and the participation rate is impressive of the LCB, I have to say. And, although I am, like board member Garrett, super interested in narrowing in on the work of the LCB, for me, seeing the comparisons to the rest of the state as a newcomer is interesting. So I appreciate that. But I'm really looking forward to continuing to narrow in on the LCB results specifically as well.
All right, great. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Anita.
All
Always
right.
good to see you, Anita.
You too. Take care.
Jim, that leads us to our reports. Do you have anything going on this week that you want to report out?
I don't have anything specific to report out. I am just, as a new board member, continuing to meet mostly with internal people in terms of onboarding. Last week I had a good session with the licensing, labeling, and advertising, and looking forward to continuing to dive into that particular work. I've had a number of people who've reached out and want to set up individual meetings, and Dustin and I are working on getting those scheduled. After my first month or so, I'm trying to really spend more time getting grounded and onboarded internally. So other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Dustin, what do you have for us?
Thank you. Yesterday I had an opportunity. We invited the AV company that did all of the technology installation in all of our conference rooms, come back down and kind of recalibrate and reassess all of the equipment that we have in the boardroom and the adjoining rooms, and did a couple quick little trainings with some of the lead staff, just refreshers and reminders how those rooms work as we start slowly rolling back into the office, and in anticipation of the requirement to provide a physical location starting in the middle of June for our public meetings, and what that's going to entail and what that's going to look like. So a little bit more work to do in there, and a lot of testing, and then probably some more testing to make sure that all the equipment runs the way that we want it to, so that we have the same, if not more, engagement with the public when we have these meetings. So more to come on that, but first big step out of the way yesterday.
It's probably time to do some updates on photos, board photos, pictures.
Yeah. I've got one. I've got the one that we had that we kept just kind of putting people's pictures over the pictures of the other people.
Okay.
I still have that, and so Jim, I'll show that to you next time we're in the office.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, we should probably get some new photos going.
Okay. Other than that, Jim, I guess I will see you this afternoon at litigations.
Man.
Anything else, Dustin, for the good of the order?
Not for me, thank you.
All righty, then we will end our board caucus today.
Have a great day, everyone.
Uh-huh.
Bye.
Bye-bye.